Good morning, everybody. This is Walk the Dog with Riot Mort. It is Saturday. I don't have to work today. Woohoo! Although, you know, out of habit, I'm like, should I be streaming? It is 6 a.m. because my body does not know how to sleep in. Never has. I couldn't sleep in if you paid me. And it is raining out. It is not too hard a rain. It's one of those misty rains. It's definitely wet out. So, yeah, cool. Let's see. It's the weekend. I actually have very little going on this weekend. It's a nice, quiet weekend. My wife wants me to take her to the casino, but I'm like, we don't need to go. We can not go for that for a while. So, yeah. Other than that, kids are fine. Things are good. I don't know. This is definitely one of those weekends where I actually miss streaming pretty heavily because I don't have a lot going on. It's like, I would like to do my hobby. So, who knows? We'll see. You guys have questions. The questions have been popping off a little bit lately. Although we need more upvotes. We need more people to upvote so we know which ones to answer. But I have 4 questions today. And let's jump into them. Okay. The first one, the person was asking about, in the set 10 revival, there are these new like dual trait augments. And in set 13, we had the team up augments and things like that. So the question was really about, what can we do with augment complexity and like where's the design space at with the augments and things like that? Do you think there's room for more? Do you think there's room for stuff like that? And so this is what I was saying. I think I said this on a walk like a week ago, but I think the augment space is incredibly rich. Like a lot of these augments have the exact same thing in common, which is, hey, this augment rewards you with power for building a composition you would not normally build, right? Built diff and double trouble, shout out to Medler, those were his idea, were kind of the original like starting point of this archetype, which again is play something you wouldn't normally and will reward you with power, which is really cool. It's a really cool archetype, and I think we can do a lot of stuff like that, right? You could get incredibly narrow and specific. I think Exalted Adventure is another example of this, where again, it's like reroll for some units you might not reroll normally together, and we'll give you power for it, right? Like that's kind of the framework for this design archetype. Team up augments, same thing. Play these 2 units together that don't share a trait. And I think there's a lot of design space within there. Here's the challenge. I look at the set 10 ones, for example, and they don't really have a lot of like openness to them, right? Like if you take one of those dual trait augments, there is probably a clear single correct way to play it, right? Ooh, there's 2 deer up there. They're looking at me because I'm walking towards the deer. There's like a single correct way to play those augments, right? It'll be like, play this exact units or these exact traits together in this exact way. That'll give you the maximum value here. Let me see if I can capture these deer, by the way. You see them right there? It's kind of hard to see them, but they're there. I'm trying to give you that view before I walk towards them and they walk away. I'm going to walk on the other side. Maybe, who knows, maybe we'll get close to them. So, I don't know if I want to disturb them. Sorry, this has not happened before, but there's just 2 deer there. They're looking at me. I'm not going to bother you guys. Oh, there they go. They're heading into They're heading in. All right, cool. Cool. I don't have to bother them. Okay, there's only one correct way to play those augments. And so, that's really limiting, and a lot of our like challenger players, for example, don't really like those type of augments. Ooh, maybe you can see, right there. There you go, right there. Look at that. They're just okay. Hi, have a good day. Oh, that's cool. This is why I love living here, by the way. Just like, oh yeah, there's just 2 deer here walking by. I'm freaking Snow White, man. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted by deer. Going back to the augment design, it's like there's only one way to play it, which isn't great. Whereas like Built Different in theory, right, when we first introduced Built Different, it was like there were a lot of different ways you could play this and a lot of different combinations of units. Now, what happened over time was that build difference sort of got solved into the, hey, this is the augment you take and jam as many 4 costs in your comp as you can. Okay, yeah, naturally makes sense, right? Double Trouble's another try at that. And it's like, cool. Over time, it does get naturally solved down to, oh, okay, well now it's just, these are the units that really benefit from the stats that Double Trouble give. And so we can make different variations of Double Trouble that change which stats it gives, but whatever champions benefit from those stats the best are probably the ones you're going to play with Double Trouble, right? Like, for example, let's say we made a Double Trouble augment that gave attack speed, AD, and AP. Well, guess what? You're probably playing Double Trouble Vayne or, or Aphelios or whatever, right? Like something you can re-roll that benefits from those stats really heavily. So I think, like you said, again, going back to your question is, then there's the complexity part, right? Like one of the other things is that augments, when you first, imagine it's your very first game of a new set and you're presented with 3 options and the choices are like paragraphs, right? It's like, well, now you can, if you play exactly Twisted Fate and Vayne, your units gain 13% attack speed plus 4% per stacking unit and divided by 12. It's like a lot of the times with the removal of augment stats, one of the criticisms has been it's very hard to intuit the value of a particular augment compared to another. And if you have these complicated augments that are like giant paragraphs, that's kind of true. And so we have to it basically comes down to what I would call elegance in design, which is you have to come up with something simple, easy to read, but opens up a lot of unique comp building space, right? Like that's kind of the goal of augments like that. So yeah, TLDR here is, I think there is a lot of space, and this is why I keep going back to, admittedly, we've been having trouble finding designers who want to just like go deep into the augment space and just like, imagine if it was your job every day to just like make new augments for a set, organize our current augments, make sure, like, that's a fun job, right? But it does require a level of really deep familiarity with TFT where you understand what type of augments the game needs, what type of augments aren't unhealthy, because a lot of the times in the augment space, someone will be like, hey, I just thought of this really cool new augment. I'm going to make an example where, actually, I'll pick on a live example, and I forget who made it. So if somehow the person who made this augment is, upset by this, I'm sorry. But I'm the carry now. I'm the carry now is an example of an augment that's like, someone had fun with that, right? They're like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if there was like a golem with 3 items and he could punch things, right? But my criticism of that augment is that it's not really easy to intuit when you're supposed to pick that augment. It's called I'm the carry now. So naturally you think, wow, this golem's going to do a ton of damage. So I should pick it when I don't have a carry and I have a great front line. But it's a melee golem. So if you have a ton of front line, like a 6 bruiser line, you don't pick I'm the carry now. That makes no sense. Because what I'm the carry now actually does is it's a very beefy, bruiser type of golem that survives well. And so, it's the uphill part. And so, what ends up happening is like, it's again, very unintuitive. And so if people looked up the stats on that augment and it said 4.2, they'd pick it blindly. But because they don't have stats, they don't know when to take it, they just never take it. And so the design of augments needs to fill known spaces and things like that, so you can intuit when to pick it. So yeah, I'm kind of jumping topics all over the place here. But TLDR here is augments are a very rich design space. The duo trait augments in 10 are awesome. And I think we should do more stuff like that. And we will. The team's been cooking up some good stuff for 15. And we even had an idea recently that was like so good we might not get it in for 15. Might have to wait till 16. But yeah, augment space, very rich. Rain's coming down hard now. It's still misty, but it's a lot of rain. So, okay. Next question. Do you have any productivity hacks for your days off, or like when you're having off days and you can't seem to find yourself being productive? Now, the person who asked this question listed some type of process with a really fancy name. And this is where I'm a man of singular focus. I make game good. I'm not like super well educated. I'm not, up on anything that isn't video games. So they listed this process and I'm like, I don't know what that is. But I can tell you again, I'm a very simple man, and I can tell you how I force myself to be productive. And there's two things that come into play here. The first, you're kind of witnessing it now, which is I'm a creature of habit. And I find when you build a new habit, the first week or two are painful, but after that, it becomes a natural process. So an example of this is these walks. The first week or two, dragging my sorry ass out to be like, go do a walk every morning was fucking miserable. I was so just like, what do I do here? Why am I walking? I could just do better. Ugh. But now I've been doing it for almost 2 months. It's just habit. It's just habit. And so I bring this up as an example because you can do this with like, hey, every day, 9 to 10, I'm going to do my laundry. Okay, great. And the first day, it's going to be painful and you're going to hate it, but give yourself a week and all of a sudden it won't be that painful. Okay, rain's coming down hard now. It won't be that painful. And the same is true for like productivity of anything, right? It's like, hey, every, 1 to 2 block, I want to do a review of all my reports work so far and make sure I'm keeping track of how they're doing. Great. Get that done. So step 1, build habits. Step 2, set yourself small goals, small short-term goals, and reward yourself when you achieve those goals. So an example here might be like, hey, I was talking about that deep dive with set 15. And I'll be honest, I was kind of dragging my ass with it a little bit. But it's like, okay, it's Wednesday morning. If I get through the 2 and 3 costs today, I'm allowed to take a break and go spend 30 minutes with my wife. Cool. So I will force myself to sit there, get it done, power through it. And it usually isn't that bad. And then, hey, guess what? Get it done. And the same is true for, like, for example, yesterday I needed to go through and do the payoffs for all the stream prizes I hadn't given out yet. It's like, okay, get this done. And then you can go talk to your wife about having some good dinner or something. And so setting myself short-term goals and rewards is one of the ways I could do it. Another example might be, get this stuff done and you're allowed to go buy a pack of magic cards or. So short-term rewards are another trick for me. Those are probably my big 2. And then over time, it's funny because the short-term rewards thing goes back into the habits thing, right? Where it's like, now I've been doing it for so long that now I'm always just like, cool, if I get a thing done, it's like training a freaking animal. I'm just an animal, I guess. But it helps keep me productive, right? And now I'm sort of trained off the recognition and rewards of accomplishing things, almost to an insane degree now, where I just like getting stuff done because it makes me feel good. So, and in fact, I think one of the reasons I got in a bit of a rut is because there aren't that many things to solve. It's like, we moved to our dream house, kids are happy, finances are okay. I don't have to worry about that much when it comes to my life, which means I'm bored. That's why my wife says I'll never retire. I will, but because if I retire, I'm just going to be bored. And it's funny, my dad and my grandpa were the same way. So It's just a Mortimer thing, I guess. Anyway, I don't know how helpful this is, but you asked. Hopefully the water doesn't do anything to my phone. Should be fine. It's just rain. Okay. Next question's a good one. What would be the death of TFT? Would it be a slow burn or a quick burn? This is such a good question. Talk about it all the time. And it's you can get really meta with this question, because look at all the big games out there right now and talk about what is the death of each of them, right? One of the things the game industry is struggling with right now is that there has not been a new big game in the free-to-play space, or like really in general, that there has not been a big live service game since I think like Valorant, Genshin Impact. You know, Genshin, you could go like, well, Genshin has Genshin, then Honkai, then each one, but like they're all kind of the same space, same audience. But it's pretty hard to be an incumbent in the space right now. And the games that are popular, you know, the Minecrafts, the Fortnites, the League of Legends, like, they just don't die. League, you know, if you're a critic of League, you could be like, oh, they've had these bad seasons and whatever. But like, League is still League. At its worst, you could say it's like, this is a fake number. This is not the real number, but let's say League of Legends has lost 30% of their audience. Again, fake number, not real. Oh no, their 100 million's down to 70 million, you know? Like, still an insanely successful game. So it's pretty hard once you've established yourself for a game to truly die. I mean, even games like Overwatch, which I know critics would say, and, you know, certainly a shell of its former self, but like, it still has an audience. People still play that game. There are still Overwatch fans. So it's just an interesting thing about gamers in general right now and their patterns, and how they all kind of like stick to their game and play it, and it becomes sort of their main thing. Now, the alternative is the single player games, which is like your Elden Rings, your Expedition 33s, which come, make a big splash, and then depart, which is the point. Like, that's not a bad thing. But like, who's really talking about Elden Ring right now? You know, and that's fine. To be clear, I'm like, Elden Ring, massive success, you know, no shade, but like, different goal set. So anyway, I've gotten a little off topic, but going back to your original question of what would kill TFT. So my belief is that if you look at League of Legends picked its audience by people who want to like pick a game, refine their skill set, practice, and get really, really good at it. And so because they've done all that practice and they're really, really good at it, their skills are non-transferable. You know, people who are good at League aren't going to switch to a different MOBA and relearn everything or restart their stuff. And that skill set isn't like, they're not all of a sudden fighting game experts or anything like that. So like, League players tend to stay League players because that's the audience they've built. For TFT, I think the audience we've built is people who love innovation. And like, the way I always phrase it in the simplest terms, halfway point, is people who love a new toy to play with, right? TFT, every 4 months right now, you get a new set, and that new set is going to have some new toy to play with. And so, you know, the game's not going to get boring, right? And even if it does, you might have a mid set, right? Like, let's say you hate set 14 right now. Okay, you only had to wait, 6 weeks? 6 or 8 weeks? And you got set 10 revival. You can go play with that toy again, right? Like, we're essentially a giant toy box of innovation, and you get to play with something new every time. Being a kid, you know, how hard was it to convince your parents to buy you a new toy? Getting a new toy every bit is wild. And on top of that, let's say you're playing set 14 and maybe you hated the 14.3 patch. Okay, 2 weeks later, you get a new patch. And that new patch will change the toys and make them, you know, the meta of your toy playing a little different, which is a good thing, you know. TFT, and it's funny because we self-selected, right? Like early on, I always use the example of Brian Kibler. There were people who thought they'd like TFT, but because the game changes too much, they're like, nope, I'm out. I didn't want a game that changes this much. I want a game that I can, refine and get really good at, like Hearthstone. Okay, cool. But we've self-selected an audience of people who want new things to play with every day. So, going back to your original question, what kills TFT? I think what kills TFT is when the game stops having new toys to play with, right? And I think it's funny, if you look at something like Dota Underlords or the Dota Auto Chess, what killed them? Well, we could go into a whole bunch of design debates, but the big thing was the games were very samey. We had the sets model. Every time the game was different and updated. Those games, very stagnant. Now, to keep up with that is an insane, it's funny, Riot Games really does not like making games that are what they call it a content treadmill, where it's like you ship the game and then you're just making content after content after content, because it's expensive to develop. TFT, we kind of tricked them. TFT, it's like, oh yeah, it's a PvP game. There's no content treadmill. JK, you got sets, you got modes, you got talkers, you got whatever. Like, TFT is a content treadmill. We are constantly making content. Most of the gameplay team is making content. The cosmetics team is making we are a content treadmill. And I think as long as that content treadmill keeps going and makes interesting, fun stuff, TFT will be around. But I think, here's a really dumb example. Let's say we shipped set 13, and then we're like, this set's good, so we're going to leave it on for a year. I think that kills the game. I think fast forward 9 months, half the audience is gone. I think that's one way to really kill the game. I think there's other ways that will kill the game, but these will never happen, right? An extreme example here would be you can buy extra reroll, you can buy a $5 pass that gives you 1 reroll per turn. Okay, we just killed the game. Yeah, I'm sure some business executive somewhere probably wrote an article about how that's a good idea for TFT. Oh wait, they did. But no, stuff like that would kill the game. Never gonna happen. Trying to think, what else would kill TFT? What else would kill TFT? I don't know. I mean, no, because games are pretty resilient at this point. So, once you've established yourself and you're a 5-6-year-old game, because even something like Hearthstone, I think some would argue Hearthstone has died over the years, but it's still going. It's still got its audience. That game's not actually dead. It's Asmongold definition of dead, but it's not actually dead. So, I don't know. I think, stopping the content treadmill is the big one, though. So there you go. All right, that was question 3. I had one more question, and this is a silly one. I just saw it getting asked this morning. Have you ever dreamed of TFT? Only every 3rd or 4th day. Though I will say, as I'm getting older, what I'm finding is the nights come and I'm so tired that I just kind of blink and I don't dream as much as I did when I was a kid. But I definitely dream of TFT. I'd be lying if I said, people like Milk and Soju haven't been in my dreams more than 5 times, or lobby 2 discussions, or being yelled at by a bot. Because work is such a core part of my identity, I dream about it quite a bit. Now, the obvious question people ask from there is well, have you had any good ideas from your dreams? Not really. Usually my dreams are very abstract, this is a unique situation where I'm playing against Soju in a tournament to show that I can play TFT well, or I'm in a boardroom being yelled at because TFT hasn't gone up 20% year over year and I'm a failure for, stuff like that. It's scenarios rather than specific ideas or anything like that. Probably the one that came up before that I think people would enjoy is the like, what if TFT was like Yu-Gi-Oh, like the card game, like the animated show where there's like a big holographic thing and people are playing TFT in a stadium like that. Silly, unrealistic, never going to happen, but fun to think about. So, but yeah, otherwise, you know, just the usual human brain dreams. Me human, me dream, stuff like that. So, rain's letting up a bit. So those are the questions I had brought for today. We're at 25 minutes. Trying to remember if there were any other questions. I know Raptor had asked one about like cost structure. Oh, okay, I can answer this one because I remembered it. I don't know if the mods deleted it or not, but there was a question Raptor had about how much power is in the units versus how much power is in the traits. And man, this is such an interesting conversation. And I think there's actually a really good example in the current set, which demonstrates the difficulty of this conversation, which is Vanguard Marksman, okay? 4 Vanguard, 4 Marksman is the common build strategy, right? Now, ideally, there would be a point where, like, when you look at that composition, right, you can make the assertment that's like, well, this is a very rigid comp. You have to play it this way. So I would push back. Why do you have to play 4 Vanguard, 4 Marksman? Why is it not 6 Vanguard, 2 Marksman? Why is it not 4 Vanguard, 2 Marksman plus some Divinicorp? Why is it not, you know, like, all of these things are essentially possible options when building a composition. But what has happened is we've essentially optimized the game to a point where, no, we've said for sure, this is the best version and here's why. So from a balance perspective, what would have to happen to make that not true? Well, you would lower the trait power, right? So for example, let's say, I think 2 Vanguard right now is 40%. I can't remember off the top of my head. But let's say we nerf that to barely over 2 Vanguard. What happens to that comp? Well, you probably cut the 2 weaker Vanguards, because normally you play Leona, Jarvan, Silas for 3 Anima, and then like, it's not Skarner, I forget who the 4th one is. But because of the trait web, would you cut Silas and lose Anima? Or another version of this is we nerf 4 Marksman. Do you cut Jinx and Jin? Probably. Right? There's in fact, the Marksman one's probably a better example, where it's like, if you nerf 4 Marksman, the value of holding Jinx and Jin on your board goes down, so then you replace them with Zac and Garen, you know, those flex units, or 6 Vanguard, right? Like, there is a number where 4 Marksman's value goes down that you no longer run 4 Marksman. Set 12 Fairy had this exact same problem where it was like, everyone ran 3 Fairy, and then you buff 5 Fairy, now everyone runs 5 Fairy. It's on a very tight knife's edge. And the reality is, and this is where it gets really difficult, casual players prefer it when 4 Marksman is the correct play. It makes sense. Max out your trait, get maximum value. Challenger players prefer it when you don't max out your trait, and no one's a bigger proponent of this than Milk. Milk hates verticals being playable because you can flex different options, right? It's like, if only 2 Marksman is playable, then you never play 4 Marksman, you flex other units, good stuff. That continues to be one of those white whale design problems where literally, if you look at 4 Marksman right now, if I change that 35% to a 30% or 25%, guess what? No one's playing it, right? Like, and some smart ass will go, well, if it's not 30, if 30 is 4 Marksman and 25 is 2 Marksman, try 27. It's not how it works, right? There's eventually a giving point where playing those weaker units, Jinx and Jin, no longer becomes worth it compared to playing stronger units, right? And like I said, there is no right answer here because this is going to be a preference of play style. And so our goal is to get that line as close as possible, but what we don't want is every endgame board being all 4 and 5 costs, right? We want lower cost units to be on board sometimes because of the value they provide to your board. You know, the fact that Jin and Jinx are on the 4 marksman board is great. But it does lead to more rigid compositions. So that being said, I think if we're going to solve this, we're going to have to take some more interesting, bigger swings. But it's one of those things that like actually isn't that complicated. It's just a number value. And the question is, where's that number? But the effect is immediate. If higher traits are weaker, no one plays them. Comps are more wild, but new players have a harder time understanding the game. Set 2 was notorious for this. What was the trait? Inferno. Like 6 Inferno was like literally unplayable because the power 6 Inferno provided was nowhere near the value of the the trait power, like of the units you'd have to give up. So like literally nobody ever played 6 Inferno. It took us like multiple buffs to get it playable. So, and again, the person asking this question is Raptor, who's an extremely deeply engaged challenger. So it's obvious his preferences are don't have verticals be that playable, you know. So that being said, we're going to take some swings at this to some extent. But yeah, again, it's one of those problems. It's not that complicated on paper. Clear effect. It's trade-offs. You always hear me talk about trade-offs. So, all right, I'm at the uphill part. It's been 30 minutes. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'm going to go inside, see what my wife wants. Maybe have some breakfast, shower, now that I'm all wet. And then, I don't know. I might stream on my alt channel if we're not doing anything. So, we'll see. Maybe I'll see you there. All right. That's going to do it for me. Have a good Saturday. Have a good weekend. Hopefully you guys keep enjoying these. All right. Until next time, take it easy.